Today's episode commences with joyous tidings, delivered by the maid, bearing a missive from Ars to his wife Leisha. He has attained a remarkable triumph in his initial combat, which is exceedingly splendid. Leisha is elated by this information and declares, "He is the mightiest in the whole world." "I am beyond delighted," she proclaims. The maid re-enters and observes her cavorting and performing unusual gestures, placing Leisha in a profoundly uncomfortable predicament. The setting then transitions to Castle Samak, where Lord Samak delivers an address stating, "You have performed commendably in the period preceding the seizure of Castle Samak. Under typical conditions, we would depart promptly to assail Fursad, but I presume you are fatigued from our protracted expedition. Consequently, I am bestowing upon you 3 days of respite while we replenish our provisions, so kindly utilize this opportunity to recuperate." Everyone applauds, and Ars and his companions are enthusiastic about this interval. Ars desires to peruse the shops, and Reds guarantees him that he will remain at his flank constantly. The setting then alters to Russell, who is engrossed in several volumes in the library, augmenting his erudition. Meanwhile, Ars is meandering through the metropolis with Ritz, recollecting the times when it was solely the two of them, prior to him acquiring additional adherents and even venturing onto the battlefield. Lemberg has developed into a robust territory, which pleases me immensely. The inhabitants of this municipality are resilient as well. They are brimming with vitality, despite recently bearing witness to a skirmish. So now we can conclude this conflict swiftly, so they can relish tranquility and security. As they amble through the municipality, they observe a substantial throng assembled. Ars is astonished to witness a singular apparatus fashioned by an innovator who proudly exhibits his creation, declaring, "Behold this contraption. I constructed it with ingenuity and enchanted stones. It's an aerial automaton, but regrettably, Ars's intense stare seems to hex the mechanism, and it instantaneously plummets and shatters. The innovator laments, saying, my craft, my craft." Reds, witnessing the occurrence, informs Ars, "Sir, are you well? It's merely scrap metal, nothing further." The innovator then unveils another creation, saying, "No concerns, I possess another magnum opus." He presents an enigmatic model fueled by enchanted stones, which releases a diminutive avian creature. However, people are unmoved by this innovation, while Ars is utterly captivated and wishes to acquire it. The innovator informs him it costs 3 gold pieces. Without delay, Ars intends to procure it instantly, but Ritz counsels him to restrain himself and refrain from acquiring such refuse. So Ritz reminds him that 3 gold pieces are equivalent to sufficient grain to endure almost a year. Ars then tells Ritz, "Examine it. Indeed, it's exceedingly costly, but it's fabricated with such meticulous precision. In a period where the majority of playthings are simply cubes and spheres, this necessitates exceptional artistry. Could it be that this individual is a proficient artificer?" Ars endeavors to appraise him, but an unusual malfunction transpires, hindering him from evaluating the man. The setting then reverts as everyone returns to Castle Samak, where Lord Samak recommences their deliberation on how to encroach upon the city of Fursad. He commences elucidating on a cartograph stating, "As you are aware, it's one of the most extensive municipalities alongside Arcantas and Simbler. Our adversary, the Bismarck faction, governs our competition in Fursad, with numerous individuals in Fursad undoubtedly bracing for any assault. This will be our most arduous engagement thus far. Any miscalculation could result in our demise. However, if we succeed in seizing Fursad, the equilibrium of authority will shift entirely. This battle is pivotal to the resolution of the conflict." Longier then informs him that Fursad is situated in a glacial region, and traversing hostile terrain in the winter will restrict their maneuvers and subject them to peril. So he proposes advancing rapidly to capture Fursad before winter commences. Lord Karan concurs, stating, "That's a sound notion. Therefore, we'll dispatch one contingent to Fort Stats, one of the largest fortifications safeguarding the city of Fursad. We will also dispatch another contingent to assault Fort Rodo in the northwest, from which we can advance to Furzode. Once we secure these 2 fortifications," Flomir adds, "I'll entrust Fort Rodo to you and Ars." He gestures towards the cartograph, explaining, "Fort Rolto is encircled by several strongholds surrounding our objective, so we must dismantle them initially. But it would be optimal to conquer them with strategy rather than sheer power in warfare. Astuteness, intellect, and subterfuge are frequently more potent than might." Russell proposes they converse with the populace initially to ascertain if they will capitulate, but everyone dismisses the concept, rejecting it unequivocally. Lord Lomier then stresses, "Fort Rolto is a highly strategic locale, and Lord Fessmark undoubtedly maintains a firm grip on it. We have no alternative but to attack." At that juncture, A soldier enters conveying news of a fresh communication. Ars is startled, then peruses the message and is exhilarated to discover they are amenable to dialogue. However, they've stipulated that someone of elevated standing be dispatched as an envoy. This communication originated from Fortress Ferdison, where Lupa is presumed to be the commandant, a renowned general whom Lord Corinne has diligently endeavored to sway to his side. Celebrated for his prowess, Lupa is also a cherished commander. Ars, awed by this man's capabilities, recognizes how invaluable an associate he could be if he aligned with their faction. However, Lupa had previously disregarded Lord Corinne's entreaties, making it appear unattainable to persuade him. Still, Lumiere encourages Ars, reminding him of his successful negotiation with the capital, which they had once deemed an insurmountable undertaking. Ars humbly responds, "All the merit, after God, belongs to my wife Licia." Lumiere reassures him, stating, "I'll entrust this to you, Ars. I'm relying on you." The following morning, Ars and his cohort arrive at Fortress Ferdison, where they caution him to exercise prudence. These parleys are precarious, and they remain on hostile territory. As they approach the fortress, a sentinel demands his identification. Ars presents himself and declares that he has come to convene with Lord Lupa. However, there is a misapprehension, and everyone brandishes their weapons against him. Ars swiftly endeavors to pacify them, stating, "We did not come for conflict." He then confers with his group whether they should withdraw, but they decide against it. They acknowledge the jeopardy, recognizing that if they relinquish their weapons, they could be assaulted at any instant. They contemplate the circumstances, noting that eliminating them would likely incite Lord Lumiere to launch a comprehensive offensive, overwhelming this modest fortress in mere moments. Furthermore, slaying an emissary is internationally condemned, an inconceivable deed for a reputable officer. Ritz then cautions, "This negotiation itself could be a ruse to inflict harm upon you, Ars." The animosity in their expressions is evident. "I cannot be certain, but I perceive something concealed at work here. You should enter armed. This is exceptionally perilous, and we cannot afford to succumb to the enemy's stratagems." Ars wavers, apprehensive, yet decides there's a remote possibility the parleys might prevail. He positions his weapon on the ground, stunning everyone, and proclaims loudly to Lord Lupa, announcing he has come for peace talks, unarmed, and aspires to resolve the conflict without aggression. The sentinels eventually unbar the gates, but only Ars and two of his companions are permitted entry. As they proceed inward, Ars's gaze appears unsteady, likely from anxiety. He soon confronts the imposing figure of Lord Lupa, who presents himself, clarifying that Lord Fessmark designated him to safeguard this fortress. Ars introduces himself as well, conveying his gratitude for being granted the audience, but in his nervousness, he falters, and the enchanted crystal he procured from the innovator slips from his grasp and activates unexpectedly. The clockwork avian creature flits above the group, and Ars attempts to seize it, but it alights in Lord Lupa's hands. Inquisitive, Lord Lupa inquires about it. Ars explains that it's a mechanical being he acquired in Samak, resembling a juvenile's plaything. He offers it to Lord Lupa, who declines, returning it to Ars before departing. Ars then employs his evaluation magic on Lord Lupa and is astounded by the particulars. He discerns that Lupa is the eldest offspring of the Lussan family from Furzid, born on the 9th day of the 4th month in year 180 of the imperial calendar, remarkably benevolent and wedded. He conforms to the archetype of a respected leader. He examines the fortress ramparts, noting the absence of any indications that a woman resides there. Upon entering the chamber with his companions, Ritz inquires about Lord Lupa's capabilities. Ars characterizes Lupa as formidable, with no perceptible flaws, an exemplary general. Just then, Ars notices a juvenile's plaything behind a divan, triggering a recollection of Meryl's counsel that comprehending the opposing party's motivations is crucial in negotiations, as well as his wife Licia's acumen that negotiations commence before arriving at the table. The setting transitions as a sentinel announces that Lord Lupa is prepared for them in the conference room. Negotiations commence, with Lord Lupa asserting he will not assent to any terms that would diminish his position. Ars interjects, inquiring after Lupa's spouse at Castle Rolto. Astonished, Lord Lupa demands to know how Ars is cognizant of her. Ars calmly elucidates that he found it peculiar that Lupa, a married gentleman, displayed no indications of a spouse's presence in the fortress, and deduced that Lupa's spouse might be held as security in Castle Rolto. Meryl, grasping the implication, clarifies that Lord Lupa's commitment to defending the fortress stems from a desperate necessity to shield his wife, as the adversary would eliminate her if he defected to Ars's side. The group acknowledges that, irrespective of their discussions, Lupa is left with no recourse but to oppose them. Here, he speculates that similar hostage scenarios may influence other fortifications, explaining why Castle Rodo hadn't dispatched reinforcements. With the picture clearer, Merrill empathizes, adding, "You don't have to serve such merciless individuals, yet you're constrained by the hostage predicament." Ars concludes that Lupa is ensnared in a tragic predicament, compelled to fight even though he stands little chance of prevailing against his true oppressors. Then Ars says to him, "So, if you were aspiring to eliminate at least one of the enemy generals to demonstrate that you've achieved something, you'd entice me here under the pretense of negotiation and slay me. You would garner commendation, and we would demolish your fortress in reprisal, but you would preserve your reputation, and they would pardon your wife. That's why you stated you would only negotiate with someone of high rank." Then he asks, "Your wife is with child. Is that not correct? If you betray your superior, your wife will be slain, and you will perish without seeing your offspring. If you combat them here, you will have to select between the two." Lord Lupa remains silent for a moment, then states, "I've witnessed numerous battles in my lifetime, and my intuition informs me we will undoubtedly perish in this one. Even so, we will contend with all our might. I am prepared to die for this purpose, but just once I desire to embrace my offspring as a father." Ars responds, "I learned that Lord Karan desired you to serve him, so I wish to assist you as well. Accordingly, I will assail Rorodo Castle and liberate your spouse." Everyone is astonished by Ars's resolution, and Lord Lupa informs him, "If you rescue my wife, I will join you in the war." Lord Lupa concurs, stating, "Please save my wife." The setting then transitions to Rorodo Castle, where we observe its leader Jan Tendrai informing his aide that detaining women as hostages has been the most efficacious strategy for inspiring the troops. We return to Ars, who is prepared to execute his scheme.